Take the first shot at me.
No way, man. I don't hit no man first.
All right, then. Hit me in the chest with that.
I'd kill you.
Yeah? From what I hear, you couldn't hit water if you fell out of a fucking boat. Throw it. Throw it. Come on. Right in the chest.
No way.
Come on, mate. You're not gonna hit me because you're starting to think about it already. Huh? Starting to think how embarrassing it would be to miss in front of all these people? How somebody might laugh? Come on, Rook. Show us that $1 million arm, because I got a good idea about that 5-cent head of yours.
Nail it. Drop him.
Ball 4.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Daily Dose. I have an old friend from college who always did pretty well with the ladies. He's good looking, handsome, athletic, very personable, very affable personality. And through the years, I graduated college well over 10 years ago, and in that time he has been with at least 100 girls. And yet he continues to ask me for advice about his dating life, which is strange considering I am nowhere near as successful as he is with women. About a year ago, he was wondering if this one girl was actually interested in him romantically. They went out on a date after he asked her out on Instagram, and they went miniature golfing. When they came home after the date, he invited her into his apartment, which she declined and said something along the lines of, "I'm not that kind of girl." This is all based on his account, so I don't know her exact words. And so she left with a goodnight kiss, and that's about it. My friend, who I will call Rick for the sake of this story, was confused and wondered whether or not he actually had a chance with this girl. So he texted me and described the whole scenario that I just recounted to you and asked, "What do you think? Should I keep pursuing this? Am I wasting my time?" I told Rick he'd be fine, not to overthink it, and just try again. Eventually he'll get her in the sack. Lo and behold, literally on the very next date, they were having sex. Why did I think this? Well, it's very simple really. She wouldn't have gone out with him in the first place if she wasn't already attracted. So the initial resistance was just her plausible deniability to seem like a slut. She probably would have slept with him on the first date anyway, if Rick was a little bit more forceful, which he wasn't. But it didn't matter. It basically amounted to a meaningless delay. And by the next date, they were having sex and began a relationship. About a week later, Rick visited me in New York City, and during his stay, he would show me all these funny texts that she would send, as well as some of the more racy texts. She was definitely very hot. After seeing how they interacted, at least in text message, I told Rick this wouldn't last very long and not to get too attached. She would break up with him within a month or two. And lo and behold, the shit testing started very soon. She was putting pictures on Instagram of her and her friends going out with other dudes in a big group setting, so it was plausibly not cheating. However, the comment sections were always filled with guys saying how hot she was and stuff like that. This made Rick uncomfortable naturally, and I told him, "Don't get too attached, she's going to break up with you soon." He thought he could stave it off, and that if he just played it cool, nothing bad would happen. So I did what any good friend would do. I made him a bet. I said, "If this girl breaks up with you, you owe me $100. And he agreed. Literally 2 weeks after he went back to Florida, she broke up with him. Easiest $100 I ever made. The most interesting aspect of this story is that, ostensibly, Rick should understand women much, much better than I do. He's been with literally 10 times as many women, if not more. Those are just the ones he told me about. But the difference is I frequently and regularly see a side of women that Rick doesn't see very often, if ever. The darker side, an almost demonic side. What I consider to be their true nature. What this girl was doing was shit testing Rick from 1,000 miles away, and he failed. And I knew that would happen, because this girl was way too hot. Not that Rick's a bad looking guy, Rick's a handsome man, but this girl was hot. And so these shit tests were inevitable, and Rick didn't know that was coming. Naturally, Rick was a little bummed out over this. We talked about it a few times over text and a couple times over the phone even. And I told him, "Rick, don't get too down on this either. You will have another opportunity soon enough. You will always be in the game as long as you stay in shape and don't get fat or anything like that." And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, he was seeing some other girl. Now this was about a year ago, or almost a year ago, and now he's seeing two girls, and the first girl in the story is asking to get back together with him. So here's my overall point. My understanding of women and general hypergamy allows me to accurately predict the future in circumstances that where I don't even have experience. I've never dated 3 girls at a time. I don't have girls throwing themselves at me. This is not my life. Yet this is Rick's life, and I understood it better than he does. Which brings me to my main point. If you're going MGTOW for the right reasons, you will understand people better than they understand themselves. Initially, this usually incites a defensive response, which is essentially what going MGTOW is in the first place. Avoiding people in general, but really avoiding certain types of people such as single moms, beta simps, feminists, and basically anyone who champions the gynocentric culture. That's all well and good, I fully support that, and that was also my initial response as well. For example, when I was a couple years out of college, so my mid-20s, my mother tried to convince me to marry another girl, roughly my age, who was pursuing a career in law. My mom tried to argue that by marrying a girl who was professionally successful, we would be able to financially support a family with a nice house. But what I really understood was this. My mom was trying to convince me to have kids as soon as possible so that she can have grandkids as soon as possible. She did not care about the hypergamous nature of women, such that when professional women marry men of similar stature, they eventually monkey branch and look for a more successful man. If I had followed my mom's advice, I'd be divorced by now, paying alimony and child support. In other words, my mom cared more about her happiness than my own. The thing is, I understood that at the time, and so I didn't follow her advice because I understood her motives in conjunction with female hypergamous nature, and I decided to do my own thing instead. And this is what I mean by the defensive posture with regard to understanding people better than they understand themselves. This is a level 1 response to a red pill awakening, and I encourage you to stay there and embrace it, internalize it, get through the rage period, really understand it, but I don't encourage you to stay there forever. The next level is to use it, not just to protect yourself, but to actually benefit. Use it to your advantage. Like I did with Rick and his girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend. I made $100 off that. It's a small example, but you see what I mean. I used my understanding of human nature to my financial gain. A small one at that, but I still did it. The way I see it, this is the next level of the game where you can truly come out ahead and use MGTOW to your advantage. It is a higher order of thinking and level of sophistication that transcends beyond the basic revenge fantasy of going your own way, going monk mode, and one day seeing all the women burn in the hell that they created for themselves. That won't really happen. Understand that right now, it's not going to happen. There will always be beta simps ready to kowtow to female demands and provide validation and resources and etc. etc. There will never be a day of reckoning. That's not coming. There's never going to be a singular moment or a climactic event where all of women in Western society say, oh my God, we really fucked up. How can we let this happen? Put that aside. That day is not coming. Instead, consider ways to leverage this climate to your personal advantage. That is the true revenge, living well off the stupidity of others. We see this happening all around us, we just don't realize it. A good example is late-night TV show host Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel's been a comedian for a long time, probably around 20 years now, going way back to the late 90s when he was co-host of a show called The Man Show. The Man Show is a boorish sophomoric comedy skit show where he and his co-host Adam Carolla made funny jokes about blowjobs while there were girls in bikinis bouncing around in the background. Don't get me wrong, I liked the show, it was pretty funny. But the point is, he wasn't exactly appealing to a sophisticated audience. Fast forward 15 years, he's hosting his own late-night show on ABC, and his material is almost exclusively centered around Donald Trump and anti-conservative ideology. Do you really think he feels this way? Do you really think he feels strongly about immigration, healthcare laws, the Me Too movement, and whatever else is in the news today? I don't know, maybe he does. But the point is, he's using the climate to his advantage, which translates into great ratings and obviously a healthy bottom line. This is the next level of wisdom we should all be striving for. Now, I certainly don't mean to suggest that we should all start going out and championing the Democratic agenda. That's not what I'm saying here at all. What I am saying is, done right, the current climate can be leveraged to your advantage. For example, let's say you are an aspiring filmmaker. Right now will be a great time to write a script, a spec script, about, let's say, a high school girl gamer who beats all the boys in Fortnite and eventually goes on to become a professional gamer and make lots of money. There's obviously a lot more that would have to go into it. It's not something that I fully fleshed out or anything. I just came up with it literally on the spot. But the point is, the general idea hits the current emotional buttons of our time and will be watched by the very people who drove us to MGTOW in the first place. Another idea might be to create a pro-feminist YouTube channel and pay girls to do voiceover content, which makes fun of a lot of the MGTOW channels, maybe like my own, and then using that YouTube channel solicit Patreon donations. What better way can you think of to get back at the female gynocracy than to have them literally pay you money? You'd be laughing all the way to the bank. Like Crash Davis at the beginning of this clip, the key here is to understand your opponent better than they understand themselves. In doing so, you can use their own nature against them, and that is the sweetest revenge.